Here we are, another Wednesday hump day. Hey family, it's your girl Mari Cruz here for Phoenix Securities Premium. I'm your independent insurance agent licensed in Texas, Florida, in Latin America, and soon to be licensed across the world. I'm coming at you today with a very real, raw topic: lapsed life insurance policies. If you or someone you love had a policy and it lapsed, this is for you. So, what does lapse mean? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? And actually, before I keep going, please subscribe now. It only takes 1 minute. Okay, just 1 minute to do it. And here's my information, my phone number, my website. Okay, so, and here we have Mrs. Susana Fuentes.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing, Miss Crypto Rican Insurance Queen?
Drinking some Arnold Palmer.
Oh, nice. Thank you to everyone that's joining us. I'm super excited to be here again. I am just so ecstatic of this amazing YouTube that we have here with Crypto Rican Insurance Queen. It's just giving so much. So yeah, I'm ready. Let's go for it, man. This is great.
So I just read the first thing and that said basically lapse. And I wanted to ask people, hey, do you think lapse is good? I mean, I'm going to ask you, Susana, is a lapse policy good or bad?
In every single way, it's bad. You know, let's just think about this way. If you get in a car accident and you forgot to make that premium and that is completely gone, it's been canceled, it lapsed. Now, guess what happens? You get in the car accident, now you have this huge problem to deal with, and you have no protection. So it's very bad. Same thing with a death. It's worse. Your family, passes away or gets injured or has a critical or chronic illness. Guess what? You cannot call them back and say, oh, I made a mistake. Can I get it? No, you've lapsed. So it's very, very bad.
So basically what Susana is saying, listen, life gets busy. You miss a payment. Maybe money was tight. You meant to call, but time slipped away. And then boom, months pass and that policy gone. But let me tell you the truth. Most agents won't. You might not have lost everything. So don't panic. Just pay attention. Okay. So can you explain a little bit that sometimes the lapse doesn't mean that you don't have any coverage? Because that's another thing. In car payments, and I'm talking about car and property, PNC, property and casualty. Yeah, but we're talking about term and life insurance. Does lapse mean always that it's gone completely or not? And explain a little bit of that.
That's a great question. So yeah, it does not mean it's gone, because some carriers, they will give you a lapse time where you're going to have a time to be able to recover the payments that you did not give. So what does that do is it gives you an extra time to just make sure to make that phone call, make that payment, to make sure that you catch up on your payments. Now, you need to make sure that you always get a hold of your carriers to see what their policies are, to make sure that any kind of, restrictions that they have on these lapse periods are not going to make you lose extra time. You want to make sure that you have that available. So whenever you make that call, you are going to be able to become eligible to just catch up on those payments. So you want to make sure to always have that great relationship with your agent. They will give you that very transparent information from the very beginning from that carrier.
And since you mentioned that, let's talk about how sometimes when you didn't pay part of your policy, sometimes you have some coverage. Let's say that you paid already $10,000 in coverage, as an example. You might have a year, whatever coverage. But again, if you don't keep it, updated, that's when things can get ugly. The other thing that I was thinking when you were talking about that, about lapse policies, is that people usually do not update their policies once a year. Once a year, you need to check if
Mhm.
the policy that you have covers you. And what do we mean by that? The 10 years. So if you have a $50,000 income, right, and you have $200,000 of debt,
Mhm.
we will actually count your income for 10 years, which is 500,000, plus that 2,000, which will be 700,000. So if you have a 700,000 need for insurance and you have 10,000, are you overinsured? Are you underinsured? Or what is it, Susana?
Well, it just depends on the client's needs, right? And what they got themselves. And I want to go back just to one thing that I want to be very specific on answering the question regarding the lapse time for a life insurance policy. Now, this isn't always a fixed period. It depends on a few factors, mainly depending on the grace period stating and the policy. This is why it's so important that everyone that's getting a policy, they contact their agent, they read the information, because most life insurance policies, both term and permanent, have a grace period of about 30 to 31 days after the premium due date. Okay. So some policies, especially universal life like IULs, have longer grace periods. Okay. But you have to check in with the carrier. So it just depends. And then, you need to make sure that you are understanding too that if your policy, for example, as an IUL, has a cash value, sometimes they can go ahead and use that money to make sure to delay the lapse and to make sure that that lapse period is a little bit longer. So if you have $200,000 in there, that you can always opt to have that taken out of your policy in order for that lapse period to extend so that you have time to catch up on the payments.
Also, if you get sick and you have a term policy with living benefits, a lot of the times you might have a waiver of premium.
Yes.
So again, knowing and understanding the intricacies of your policy is ultra important. And that's why you need to get agents that are going to explain, like me and Susana, who is going to explain what is it that your policy covers. I'm going to tell you, I talk to people all the time, every week, and have meetings with people. And when I ask them what kind of policy you have, the majority of people can't tell you. It's one. If it's term, it's term or perm.
Mhm.
And I said, term is not the best, but it's better than nothing. But if you're going to have a term policy, which it usually covers you for 10, 20, 30 days, 10, 20, 30 years, I always include a living benefit just in case somebody gets terminally chronically ill. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because if you can't work, what happens with most people?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Marimet, it's so important for us as agents to sit down with the client and specifically talk about things that really bother them. Like what would be something like, for example, if they have family members that they've experienced having living issues, when they had a cancer or some kind of illness, then they will want to have a right that's going to cover that. They want to make sure they're protecting that area of their life. A lot of people, back in the day, they would just get a term insurance or life insurance that just covered nothing during their life and only covered the beneficiary when they were gone. Now we're seeing that there's just so many needs out there because we're growing, our population is growing, the needs are growing, and we're living longer. It's no longer like, we're living up to 60, 70 years old. We're living longer. So living longer is going to bring us also different factors in our health that we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves as well, because we are contributing, but we want to make sure we get something for it. So just like you mentioned, just like anything, there is upgrades, right? There's riders that you can add to your policy depending on the need. It could be anything from like a waiver on your premium that you mentioned about. It could be a rider for a terminal, a critical, or a chronic illness. There's also riders.
Accidental.
Accidental.
My
Exactly.
children work in warehouses. Usually worker comp doesn't help you that much.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if I was talking to somebody that works in a warehouse, I will include an accidental death benefit and accidental rider and a living benefit. So if that person gets hurt, it's covered by the accidental. If that person gets sick, it's covered by the living benefit. If the person dies, it's covered by the policy. And so
yeah, you want to make sure that you have a solid a solid foundation for you to be able to get protection like you're mentioning, because you want to make sure you don't just have a death benefit. Because what about yourself? What about taking care of yourself, making sure that you're protecting yourself while you're alive? And then, as well as, like you're saying, if you work in a hazardous environment or some other kind of environment that you know that you have an accident or you're prone to have an accident, you want to make sure that you are putting that on your life insurance or your term insurance. Because even though you do may work at a construction site or somewhere where they do have some kind of insurance, I can tell you at the end of the day, it's not going to be enough. And you want to make sure that you have enough to cover your expenses, to cover your needs while you're either recovering, or you never know. I mean, it could be a long recovery, it could be a lifelong disability. So you want to make sure that you sit down with your agent and you let them know exactly what the concern is and your experiences, and how we can make sure that we can address those concerns and add the proper riders for you and your family.
Exactly. And these things are not expensive if you're young, you're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So let me show you guys an example. Although for me, I like permanent insurance better, and an IUL, an index universal life, is better for me, because usually what happens with the premiums, you can pay, let's say that there's a premium for $50. If you have a problem with your finances, usually you can pay less with these IULs. But let me show you how cheap these things are. And I mean term insurance. There's no excuse not to have some kind of life insurance. Actually, I was in a restaurant on Friday, and I asked the owner of the restaurant, "Do you have life insurance?" He said, "No." My wife does, but no. So basically, if you gone, I said, "There's no. She don't have any protection. She's just gonna be like SOL." And he's like, "Oh, but I don't think I need it. I'm just 50." And I said, "First of all, you're Latino. We have the Russian lottery of diabetes, heart attacks, and all this other stuff." So I told him, "Why is it that people have car insurance, health insurance, and home insurance, but not protect the most important thing, which is life insurance, right?" And
Right.
you can comment on that while I go and connect so that I can show you guys a term policy really quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just like you stated, it's so much easier for people to have a mindset of paying for specific coverages. But I think it all comes rooted in the way we are taught, right? Like, we live in a country where we have to have a lot of different protections. Like, for example, you will not go without having an insurance on your home. Why is that? Because they let you know that you need to make sure that you have one, because most of the people in the United States do have a mortgage. So when you have a mortgage, that means you have a lien on your house, which means that you owe that home to somebody else. So until you pay off that debt, they want to make sure that they're protecting their asset. So they want to make sure that you have a policy on their asset. So they're not so much worried about you. I mean, letting you know, it's their large amount of loans. They want to make sure they get that paid. So the best way to do that is to protect that, because they know you don't have the money to pay up front for it. So same thing with the car. When you have a lien in the car, you need to make sure you have an insurance. But it's also part of the need for your state, right? You need to have insurance because it is state regulated, it is a state law. So unfortunately for life insurance, it's not really seen as something that's mandatory. However, you see it on specific amounts of people that they do have it, depending on their culture or their upbringing. They will understand the need of a life insurance because they probably went through a loss, or they saw the hardship due to a loss, or different, life experiences, that have been a big factor to be able to have that kind of a mindset towards the life insurance. So life insurance is not mandatory, but should it be? Yeah, it should be for yourself. You should be able to have that because you need to make sure that you protect yourself and your loved ones.
Okay, I don't know what did it didn't do that. Give me a second. It said this, they don't know what happens. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it does that for whatever reason.
John Doe, and he is 35, male, state of Texas. And let me just go 10. and 20, and then go to 50, 100, and 200. I don't know. What am I doing? I'm sorry. This is the only thing that I don't like about having a.
I think it's 50,000. Let's go ahead and just run it at 100,000 because sometimes it's a little funny on the system. Just go ahead and do the $100,000 up to $500,000 or something like that.
Okay.
See what it does.
Okay, John D, 35, male. But again, there's ways to work around things, and there's no excuse not to have life insurance. Okay, I'm telling you guys, this is pretty cheap. And look, we can do the writers thing, accidental death benefit if you work in a place that you might get there, waiver of premium. If you get sick, boom, you don't pay anymore. Return of premium. If the term ends and you don't use anything, you get all your premium back. And a child rider if you have a child. So again, there's so much stuff for these things. Okay, can you do it from your side? I don't know what's
happening. Let's see if I could do this. Yes.
Because I don't know what the heck, girl. But the point is, usually it's so cheap for term insurance. There's no excuse. Of course, we usually recommend more perm instead of term. Term is going to terminate either when you die or when the term of 10, 20, 30 years ends, right? Mm-hmm. So what she's looking at that, I'm telling you guys, it's not expensive. Okay, it's not. But I know I actually sent an IUL for a kid, and it's $13 a month for $50,000 of coverage. And if the kid gets sick, has the living benefit for $13. So if you get these things and you get prepared before things happen, you can actually lock this premiums in very, very cheap areas, right? Not only that, the term insurance, usually you can convert it from term to perm without having to deal with a health blood test or any of that stuff.
Absolutely. So let me present this to you. So if it's okay, if I can share my image here. It's funny. It's altered the whole thing. Okay. Hopefully it will work. Let's give it a try.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. So we're waiting for her to post that thing. So basically, when a policy lapses, it means you stop paying premiums and the coverage ends. Usually.
Okay, so I think you can see my screen, correct?
There you go.
Okay, so this is an average 35-year-old male that the category is just standard. Marima, explain what is standard. I mean, because we have different categories that we can put people in depending on their health. The standard on tobacco.
Yeah, well, so usually if you're like an athlete, as an example, right? If I'm talking to an athlete, a person that has like perfect body, no fat, I will put him like preferred breast, no tobacco. But there's barely nobody in this country. Let's be real. In our country, where we have people eating fast food, mostly everybody ends up being standard plus non-tobacco or standard non-tobacco. So you want to be sure that you're not smoking, because once you're smoking, what happens is that the premiums go up. Can you put a standard tobacco and you can see how it changes the thing?
Well, let's go ahead and just look at the numbers
later, yeah.
So for John, that's just, we just put a name out there. For John, that's male, it's 35 years old, in the state of California, because I'm in California, for $150,000 death benefit. This is only a term for 30 years. It starts about $27.99, and then it just kind of goes down depending. Now, why is there so many different prices here? Well, I want to explain that. And this is something that we see as agents. There's a lot of different policies out there that may not have all the riders already in place. We as agents, me and Marima, we want to make sure that you have critical, chronic, and terminal illness riders they're not going to be charging you extra for. So these are probably going to be having to be add-ons, are going to be a little bit more expensive. Nationwide, on your side, always has like one of the best ones that there's out there for $32.81. John, 35-year-old male, standard on tobacco, can insure himself until the age of 65. The best thing about this Money Med is that this is convertible. You can actually convert this into a life policy. So it's like a win-win. Now, let's go ahead and do what Money Med said, that she's going to go ahead and take him off a standard non-tobacco to standard tobacco, so we can understand and see the big.
Wow, that's double,
double
the price.
Absolutely.
Because when you're smoking, you're hurting your body. This is why we're telling you guys that the time to get life insurance, be in term, which is 10, 20, 30 years, or permanent, is when you're young. This is what we like to not only insure the father, the parents, but also the kids. So if the kid decides, I mean, a lot of our, especially in the Latino communities and Black communities, we have, like I said, the Russian lottery of health issues. So if the kid has diabetes when they're 10, 11, and you have the kid on a term policy, which is going to be like $10 or less from the beginning, you don't have to worry about it because it's covered. And then you can still convert it from term to perm without needing and worrying about that the kid now has diabetes and it's not going to fall into it. And once somebody has some kind of disease or whatever, usual sickness, usually what happens is you either cannot buy life insurance or you're going to have to pay up to your wazoo. And that's not good. So again, you can do this pretty early and pretty cheap, and it's not painful as she showed you. But you see, you smoke, boom, double or almost triple the premium. So going back to the last thing, why do policy lapse? Usually you were never educated on why this policy mattered. Maybe the premium was too high, but as we're noticing, usually the premium is not too high. Unless, can you put one for somebody that's 60 years old? Because this is the other problem that we have. We have people in our communities that are not insured. And then they come to us after 60 years old, 75 years old. And that's when you see that the premiums go really expensive. But still, you have to think about, if you are 60 or 70, whatever, and you have a house and you have people depending on you and you are not insured, who is going to be left with the bill? Who's going to stay behind and be left with the bill? The people that you love. So they not only have to worry about, oh, I lost my family member. Oh, my heart is broken. No, oh, I don't know where I'm going to pay, how I'm going to pay this. And usually the funeral expenses start like at 10, 15,000 and up. And up. And in California, it might be more expensive, right? Depending on the state and the place that you live. But there's a stark difference when you insure yourself young compared to insuring yourself old. When you insure yourself and you're healthy, when you insure yourself and you're not healthy. The stark difference is huge. It's huge, okay? And we don't want you guys to be unprepared because nobody knows when they're going to die. Unless you have a sickness diagnosis, nobody knows usually, right?
So here is the screen, and everything you just said just makes so much sense, right? But it's just unfortunately that sometimes we do have people that come into our office and, you know, they're ready because something happened, you know, their family passed away, or usually it's a hardship. Usually people kind of wake up whenever something happened to them that affected them directly. So whenever you have people that come in at their 60 years old, like this is John again, he's Mel, he's 60 years old in California. He's coming, he's ready to do it. Maybe not for hardship because someone passed, but maybe because he just retired or the company he was with closed. And even though they had a work, term policy for him that was being provided by his employer, as soon as John's gone, guess what? If it's not on the contract, it is completely out the door. He no longer has life insurance. So they come to us and they say, hey, I'm 60 years young. I want to see if I can get at least $150,000. That's what I had before. How much is this going to cost me? Well, it's going to start about $100 a month. Okay. And it just keeps on going after that. And this is without having complications, because sometimes they will have other complications. So they will not even be a standard. They'll be standard plus or something else. So it will increase that rate as well.
Exactly. So I know this. I mean, nobody wants to talk about death. Nobody wants to talk about sickness. Here in Texas, I have my Texas flag, and just remembering the people that died in here in Central Texas where I live, over 100 people that would have never thought would be gone, the family members. Right now, we have people scrambling to see how they're going to cover these funerals and stuff. And it just breaks my heart, guys. Listen, can you reinstate a lapse policy? A lot of the times, yes, it depends, okay? Again, depends on the grace period of the company. And like Susana mentioned before, most companies give you a 30 to 60 day grace period. So you have to call your carrier and ask them grace period and write it. Some allow reinstatement up to 5 years, depending on the policy. But here's the catch. You might have to do a new health check. You owe back premiums. And if your health changed, the cost could go up or you may get denied. But guess what? That's still better than starting from zero. So if you let something lapse, call me. If you're in Texas and Florida, call me. If you're in Cali, call her. And we'll talk to the carrier for you, okay? Because it's better to have something that you can start over than nothing. And if you don't have any kind of life insurance and it's been years since your other policy lapsed, logically, you're not going to be able to resuscitate that because that's dead. It's not a zombie that can come back to life, right? But we can help most of the time. Listen, I don't know how many times you and I have reviewed policies of people, but question, how many people are underinsured? How many people are not only underinsured, but they're paying too much for their policies for a small benefit? Tell people how horrible things that we see.
Well, I want to touch bases just real quick and not let this go. And, my condolences, and our heart is completely broken here in California for all the loss and all the tragic deaths that have occurred in Texas. Nobody knew this was coming. It was just like a spur of the moment. The river rose and it wasn't enough time. It was like within a matter of minutes, it just rose up so high that it went out and it took so many lives away. And I want to be very, very straightforward. With this kind of situation, you don't have just one family member. You have multiple family members that have passed away. And with all the grief and all the shock, that's one thing that you would not have to be worrying about if you did have a life insurance. And, no child is too young to have one. I've had one for my kids since they were little. I mean, I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity given to me at the time it did. Like I always say, when there's opportunity to come to you, take them, because it might not happen again. Don't take it for granted. So knowing that these things are happening and we're seeing in our history, we need to learn from that. We don't have to be directly affected where it's our family, but we are affected because we're human and we are a community. Here in the United States, we need to understand that we are all a community at the end of the day. We need to all see for each other and be there for each other. So on that sense, we need to make sure that we it's not a silver lining. We're not learning anything, but we're just understanding that things happen and that there's no control over them and people cannot predict them. I mean,
nature is unpredictable. We got in California every year fires that come out of nowhere.
Yeah, all of a sudden there's fires.
We got tornadoes, we got flash floods that can go from everything is dry to boom really quick. Yeah, so again, we don't have control of a lot of things, but we have control on this. We can be prepared and leave something to those that we leave behind so they don't have to go begging while they're actually grieving.
Yeah,
Because
and then
GoFundMe, right, is not a plan.
no, it's not. And then, we have to remember that if there's too many of the same community, or, how much money can we all spill out, right? It's sometimes we're living paycheck to paycheck. So that's another thing. And, when it comes to the question you were asking about if people are overinsured, underinsured, or stuff like that, that is just, that's another issue, is that sometimes people do have, for example, life insurance for their employer. Let me just go at a very conservative route here. My scenario is going to be a 46-year-old woman like myself. She's been working for a company here in California, and she gets laid off because we see a lot of companies closing. So now I have a mortgage about $350,000, and I do have a life insurance for $100,000 at my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I lose my job, and then there goes that life insurance. Or I end up dying during the transition, and I do have that life insurance, but it's not going to cover except for $100,000. A regular, just like very minimal cremation is about $3,000. So, most of us Hispanic, I'm telling you from my end, we would rather just bury them, whole body, and just do the things as we're used to from our own culture and traditions. So we're not going to take we're not going to take the cheapest route. We want to make sure that we're doing something that's going to be significant for the family. So it's not going to be enough, because by the time you get done with the cost, by the time you get done with the burial, by the time you get costs done with, for example, family taking time away from their jobs, making sure that they have enough money, you still have that mortgage payment. You still have that mortgage just sitting there. So you are considered to be underinsured. So that's why it's so important that you get together with someone as an agent or with us and do a free financial needs analysis. Going to give you a breakdown of how much money you need to have to be able to protect yourself, your children, and your assets. Because the last thing you want is for you to lose your job, your insurance, your life, and then your kids have nothing, or your spouse is left with nothing. It's just such a horrible situation that you can get yourself into. So there's no need for that. Just give us a call. We'll run some free numbers for you. We'll do a free financial needs analysis for you, and you're set. You have to just do it once and you're done. You actually have options to pay it full. So you don't have to be worrying about monthly payments. If that's something that's going to be bothering you, just pick up the phone, give us a call, give your agent a call, and just let them know you need something to make sure that you are not underinsured and that you have some kind of insurance.
Yeah, and while you were saying this, it just remind me of the Bible, of the house on the sand and the house on the rock. Let's be real. Most of us Americans, especially in the minority communities, the Latino community that we belong to, and in the Black communities that I belong to too, because I'm Puerto Rican, so I'm Black and I'm Latina. We are building our house on sand. And if something happens, boom, it's a domino effect. It's like a little snowball that turns into what? Into an avalanche, right? Mm-hmm. We got an earthquake, and what happens usually if you're in an island? There's a tsunami alert.
Yeah.
So usually, I don't know if you noticed this, but I noticed this, and I don't know if it's me, but usually when somebody dies in the family, there's like 3 things that happen. Either 3 deaths or something, like somebody dies and then I don't know if you notice that pattern, but I noticed that, and I'm like, okay, that's really, really weird. But let's go back to what do you do right now if you have a policy that lapsed, okay? So if your policy lapsed within the last 6 months, and you're in Texas or Florida, DM me. If you're in California, DM her. We can check if there's ways to reinstate it. But if not, if it's been longer, we'll look at fresh options that still fit your budget and protect your family. If you never had a policy, I think this is a time for you to wake up. Look at here, my state. Everybody knows about what happened in this area, Central Texas, and the people that died. Again, nobody expected a week ago that we were going to be losing kids in this flash floods and any other stuff. So again, When Murphy knocks, our coverage blocks, but you can't cover it if you don't have it. Okay? Right? And
That's
so
right.
I'm telling you guys, and we've shown you that it's affordable. If you have more money, we can offer you a better deal in the sense where you can actually put money for death benefit and money for a little bank account that grows with an index universal life, which is amazing, right? Where you can take money from there in case of an emergency. Because let's be real, your bank doesn't give you anything, not even a percentage, right? When you put your money in the savings account. I remember when the savings account used to give like, was it 5% before? It
Could have
was a
been.
long time ago, like 30 years ago. I'm dating myself, dude. Like seriously, and now it's like they don't give you a percentage, guys. And the worst thing is they have your money, they use your money, and for every dollar that you have there, they lend your money, make money off of you while you're there just paying fees. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best thing is just education. If you guys do have an insurance, you guys have a question on, you don't necessarily have to give us a call. You can go ahead and call your carrier and then go from there. Now, if you do not have it anymore and it's been more than 6 months, you're more than likely already have lapsed. Do not get intimidated by that. Just pick up the phone, give us a call. There's nothing to it. It's very simple. It's very easy. There's not going to be any cost. All you're doing is you're actually preventing an extra cost for yourself in the long run. You're preventing an extra cost for your family in the long run. If you don't have the money now, you might not have that money later, but at least get yourself a policy that's going to be very doable for you. Now, not everybody, needs the same policy coverages, right? What is for me is for me. What is for Money Med is for her. So we have to do a financial needs analysis on you and let you know what is the best way. And then that way we can make sure that we can ensure that. And then we can make sure that we have that taking care of you for you and your family so that you have no kind of hardship. So the whole thing of this is to make sure that you are aware. If there is a lapse, that we can take care of that. Nothing else. It's just easy as said than that. So like if you do have something that you currently have, you need us to check on it, call us. But more than anything, it's just giving you that awareness, right? That if there is a lapse, you're probably not going to have that insurance. If you don't have the insurance, you probably do not have the coverage. You have no coverage, you are left out in the dark, and so is your family. That's the end of it. There's no.
wow, I love that. I love that. So yeah, I'm gonna actually bring some rap here so we can bring it home. Okay, yo, you missed a bill. Just one little slip. Now your policy's gone. You ain't even tripped. But Murphy's out lurking. He ready to strike. Soon as you last, he come ruin your life. Ambulance screaming, bills in a stack. No payout now? Ain't no cover for that. You thought you had time. That grace ran out. Now your fam's in the dark, filled with fear and doubt. Murphy's law got no chill. He wild and bold. He show up when you're sick, broke, stressed, or cold. Funeral costs? Dying sheep. My friend, GoFundMe not how your legacy ends. One call to me, one call to her. We flip the script. Get your policy back. No more what ifs. Maricruz and Susana. We fight for your plan. So Murphy gets blocked like a spam called scam.
You just said it. This is the way to say it. This is the way to say it.
Wait.
To be here. Just drop the mic and walk away.
I have to drop the mic because again, we see it again and again. And we're here to help you guys. Again, I came from an island where we had hurricanes every year. And now I'm in Texas and I'm seeing crazy things. And it's just like, man, some things can be prevented. I don't mean, what happened with nature. But again, I mean, seriously, it's not expensive if you're ready. And let's be real. A lot of you guys, and I know because I was one of those people, have money for things that are unimportant. Oh yeah, you go into Starbucks and you actually spend $5-6 a day. That's $180 a month. With that, you can actually almost secure all your family, right? with
Hmm.
180 bucks, right? If
Yeah.
they're young, if you have two adults and one kid, you might be able to actually use that money to actually secure what is important. Okay, so I just again I'm not. I feel like sometimes most of the time I'm just in my soapbox because I am really really frustrated, and I'm here. We're here to help you guys, and we can take you to the water. But once you're in the water, what happens?
Exactly. And you
If
know
you
what?
don't drink it, we need to give you salt so you drink it. But then we have to force the salt. And this is what we're doing with these lives. This is the salt. Get thirsty and come and talk to us.
Absolutely. Life is unpredictable. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed for nobody. The best time to put protection in place for your family is right now. Don't wait. Like, don't wait for something to happen to your family. Act on it now. Now that you have time to browse and look for something that's going to be for you. If there's no need, that means that you shouldn't procrastinate. You shouldn't be waiting for last minute. You should be able to go out there and do what you have to do. So let's not wait another day. Let's make sure that we're securing you and your family and your loved ones to make sure that you have peace of mind to know that you're going to be protected and there will be what is deserved for you and your family. You don't want to wait for that. So call me or call Mighty Med. Give us a call. Let us help you. Let us take care of you and your family to make sure that you have the coverage that you need. It's very quick and easy. It's not going to take us more than 5-6 minutes of your time. It's 24 hours. You're going to have 23 hours and 55 minutes late, so you can continue doing whatever you have to do. So once, your conversation will make sure that we can make the difference into you and your life. So make sure that you just pick up the phone, give us a quick call, and let us know how we can care for you and your family. Let's take care of us together. So reach out to us today.
Wow, man.
Mhm.
I love that, Susana. Like, you really inspire me. But I still, we can see, think about it, guys. You can see the future in a way by looking at your family members if they're sick. Example, I have family members diabetes, people that have heart attacks, colon cancer. So again, why wait till something happens when you already have your family's history basically telling you or screaming at you, insure me, insure yourself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, there's no reason to wait. So, we're seeing stuff happen. We're seeing events that are tragic unfold before our eyes. We should not wait for anything anymore. And everything is scary. We understand that. That's why we're here to help you. It's just like anything else in life. We need to make sure that the protection is in place to make sure that we can avoid that extra hardship, because the hardship's still going to be there. This is not going to take away the pain. This is not going to take away what has happened to your family member. It's not going to take away what could happen to you, but it's going to at least alleviate one part of that hardship. So, with that in mind, I want to make sure to be very, transparent when it comes to the need of insurance. You do need to have insurance, even though if it's a minimal amount, 50,000 to 100,000, depending on your needs, but get yourself something that's going to work for you, that you can make sure you can protect yourself and your family.
exactly. Basically, if you have somebody dependent on you, you need life insurance. You need life insurance. It's not if you want, is that you need it. Okay. So if your life insurance policy has lapsed, usually that means you're no longer protected, like we discussed. And that's exactly when Murphy's Law tends to strike. I remember how many times we had a car, the cars, we end up paying the car, the extended warranty ended up, and now the car needs $1,000 to be fixed. Your refrigerator goes out, usually what? When it's not covered, right? So it's the same thing. The moment your coverage ends, unexpected chaos like illness, accidents, or job loss can hit hard. A lapse policy means usually not that benefit, no financial help, and no peace of mind for your family. So even if you miss a payment, you may still have options to reinstate your coverage or get a new policy, but time and your health matters. Remember, the longer you wait, the worse it can get. Don't leave your loved ones vulnerable. Act now, fix the last, protect your legacy. With Susana and Mari in
That's
the
right.
house.
That's right.
So,
Well said.
so do you want to say the last final words and we're going to go?
You know, if there could be anything that I can say, it would just be, just don't wait till tomorrow. Don't take tomorrow for granted, because if we're taking tomorrow for granted, then what are we doing? You know, what are we doing with ourselves? What are we really accomplishing? So don't wait for tomorrow. Just do what you have to do. The faster you kind of get in hold of what each one of us would be better, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? We can't dwell on tomorrow. We can't wait on tomorrow. We can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. But one thing I will let you know is, once you do get a policy in place, you and your family will get that coverage that you deserve to have. You will make sure that you have that ease of mind, that peace of mind. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. You know, I have a policy. I hope I can never use it. I have a policy on my kids. I hope I never have to take it. But if the time comes, when the time comes, I think I need to stop saying if it comes. When the time comes,
Exactly when.
it will be there. So it's just a safety net, it's a safety heaven. So go ahead and just do it. So don't wait on it. Don't take it for granted. Just get on it now.
Well, thank you so much, Susana, for being here. We will be here next Wednesday at the same time and the same hour. And we see you guys next week. Blessings, and keep praying for Texas. We love you guys.
Paper trails thicker than a mystery novel. Cash flow ripple make the banks grovel. Phoenix rise both shut with precision. Generational wealth, that's the mission. Legacy locked, key in the safe. Phoenix flying, no time to waste. Stacks on stacks, building the base. Future so bright, can't see the haze. Securities move, we the pros in the game. Trust airtight, playing no shame. Life insured, annuities grow. Seeds in the ground, now watch them show. Golden wings.